In case you missed it, Sammy Hagar is taking the music of Van Halen back on tour with a new lineup. The lineup is absolutely stellar, with Sammy Hagar on vocals, Michael Anthony, the original bassist of Van Halen, on the bass, Jason Bonham, son of John Bonham from Led Zeppelin, on the drums, and the guitar legend Joe Satriani on guitar. Now, anyone trying to fill Eddie Van Halen's shoes, I mean, that's already a very nerve-wracking situation. The man revolutionized guitar in so many ways. He's one of the biggest names in guitar ever. I made an entire video talking about why Eddie Van Halen is so important right when he passed. You can go check that out if you want. I'll have a link in the description. Well, for them to promote this new tour, Sammy Hagar and the rest of the band made an appearance on Howard Stern, and something happened that lit the internet ablaze. I originally wasn't gonna cover this because I didn't feel like I had anything to add, but things developed. Well, let's just watch and you'll see. This is the appearance on Howard Stern.
What is the most difficult riff you think that Eddie ever came up with? Sammy, you said the intro to 5150 was the favorite thing of yours, that you loved it.
That and Summer Nights, but there's something else from the early days that he did that we all just go every time Eddie would play that, and every time Joe plays it,
This is impossible to play, right?
Oof. It's a little better. I mean, the one thing you'll notice is that the tone is not quite the same. Satriani's guitars are a lot warmer than most Super Shredder guitars.
That's nuts.
That was an intro to a song called Mean Streets from early Van Halen stuff.
Okay, just a quick side note before we talk about that. I love how Sammy Hagar talks like he's John Madden. There's a part right after this where he takes like 45 seconds to simply explain that he hired Joe because he knows music theory.
that's just lunatic. Like, that isn't even, like, the thing about what Eddie did, the reason Joe is in this band for this tour is because, like,
watch Hilgenberg here. I mean, he's in Dijonais. I mean, he hits him, gets the helmet in there, get that hand up there, boom, the right hand, and the left hand.
Like I said, if you're going to go deep into his stuff, into Van Halen catalog, you need a guy like Joe Satriani.
And then both hands, then another one, then a right again, then the push.
That's not just imitating Eddie. You know, so many little kids in grocery stores nowadays can just pick up a guitar off the shelf, 12-year-old, and go play all this stuff.
Watch what this guy here does to this guy here. Now, if you want to be a blocker, you want to be a guard, you do this. That is called a pancake.
Seriously, listen to Sammy talk and just imagine that it's John Madden. It works too perfectly. All right, for those of you who know how Mean Streets is supposed to go, that wasn't very good. I mean, it's better than I would have done for sure. I did laugh the first time I watched it. I mean, it's pretty rough and it's pretty funny. I'm sorry, it's pretty funny. It kind of reminded me of this gem from Loudwire's 13 guitar fails video. But my first thought after that was, you know, that's actually kind of wholesome in its own way. I've seen Satriani live. He's excellent. It's fairly obvious to anyone who knows of Joe Satriani that the man can play and play exceptionally. So it's not like Satriani has anything to prove here. And I mean, the fact that the intro to Mean Streets was super difficult, even for Joe Satriani, is really a testament to just how crazy Eddie's stuff was, and God rest him. But that wasn't how all of the internet took this video clip. While most of the comments I have seen reflect my sentiments, is just like, oh, wow, yeah, that's really hard. Even Joe Satriani is having trouble with this. Apparently, some Van Halen fans were starting to bust Joe's balls about this, which I'm sorry, just stop. It's not like you guys could do any better. And if you seriously think Joe is just incapable of playing Eddie Van Halen stuff, you are exceptionally ignorant. This stuff will be nailed by the time the tour rolls around, promise you. Now, keeping in mind, I have not seen any of this backlash myself, and I also haven't seen any of what we're about to talk about, but apparently, there is also a trend of bedroom shredders putting the clip of Joe Satriani messing up next to a clip of them performing it correctly, and That's definitely gone too far. Andy Wood released a rant about the situation that I think really sums it up pretty well. For anyone who doesn't know, Andy Wood is an amazing shredder in his own right. He loves his Telecasters. Man is fabulous.
I think it's cute how this Satriani thing has queued up everybody making their takes, tagging Joe, acting like, they're better than him because they spent months or years learning how to play the intro to Mean Streets, dedicating their lives to recreating Ed's thing. Guess what? You're still not Ed. Like, heads up, you'll never be him. I won't. Nobody else will. So to get this weird ego trip by tagging Joe freaking Satriani or comping together videos of Joe Satriani and you while you play Mean Streets in your house, sitting down on take 59 of it. Meanwhile, he's up there with Sammy Hagar and Howard Stern looking at him, like the ultimate in red light, nervous, whatever you call that, red light syndrome, right? But like, it's the most high pressure scenario on the planet, A. B, none of us will be Van Halen, no matter how hard we try. C, from what I gather, there's not been any preparation or really intense rehearsals on this stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, that to me seemed pretty obvious. Like, look, Joe Satriani and everyone he works with are professional performers, and there's a certain standard that has to be met if you're going to do this and do it right, especially with the brand of Eddie Van Halen. So there is zero shot that's what he was gonna walk up on stage with, ever. It was either they're not playing Mean Streets or they're gonna play it eventually, he just hasn't learned it yet. And he was trying to demonstrate what the hardest guitar part that Eddie Van Halen wrote was. Like, if you've had an ounce of real live performance, you would get this very quickly.
And you're in your little dungeon tagging Joe Satriani, who spent his life building a legacy and a career that we would all dream of, writing some of the most iconic instrumental music ever, getting every accolade you could ever get. And you're in your dungeon, and now you're going to tag him with your superiority because you've spent 6 months learning how to play Mean Streets, or 6 years for some of you guys, I don't know. Boy, that's just weak. It just shows me how weak you are, and I'm disappointed in how a lot of the guitar community's handling this.
I feel that to a degree. I'm not sure if weak is the word I would use. I could probably be argued into agreeing with it, but it's certainly not good. Regardless, Andy nails this, but I do think he missed one specific point. I'm willing to bet none of these guys making these videos trying to elevate themselves above Joe Satriani have actually found their artistic voice yet, especially on the guitar. And Joe Satriani not only found his artistic voice, but he's a very significant artistic voice in the guitar world. Just making a video like that and tagging Joe in it, it just comes across as very self-aggrandizing to me. Trying to capitalize on a vulnerable moment when a literal living legend is showing us that he is human, that even he is having trouble with something, and you just degrade him for it and use it as an opportunity to step on his head so you can lift yourself higher. Trying to insinuate through playing one intro of one Van Halen song cleaner than he did on one specific live performance that you are a better guitarist than Joe Satriani, even though it's pretty clear Joe didn't practice it that much. And not to mention the fact that Joe is getting up there in age, and the older you get, the harder it is to learn new stuff. It just seems really low, you know? It does not sit good to me. You took an event that was actually pretty cool and humbling and used it as an opportunity to show how great you were. Seems pretty awful. Oh, and by the way, for any of the casual hate watchers who think that's what I do, you're wrong. Just simply wrong, period. That is your own projection on my words and actions. And if that's really how you feel about it, you probably shouldn't be trusted with having any opinions about anything. They're probably worthless. Your judgment is probably awful. Anyway, getting back to the point, let's break down a few key takeaways from this scenario. One, being a good technician is not the only metric on the guitar. If it were, Michelangelo Badio would be the greatest guitarist of all time, and there wouldn't be any competition. Now, if you're only measuring who is the best technician on the guitar, meaning who's the fastest, who's the cleanest, etc., then okay, that's one thing you can specifically measure. But the players with the absolute greatest chops have never been the most significant musicians, period. So pretending that you're a better technician than Joe Satriani doesn't really prove anything other than you value unmusical things more than musical things. Playing guitar to you is like playing a video game. If I hit the right buttons in the right order, in the right combination, at the right time, then I win the game. And I win by doing it faster than anyone else can do it. At that point, you've just turned the guitar into a very convoluted game of bop it. And this is probably why all of your songs are shit. Obviously, I'm not saying that being a technical powerhouse means that you will never be able to write music. They are not mutually exclusive, but one does not guarantee the other. At the end of the day, people respond most to a strong composition and an emotive performance than they do someone shitting out 10,000 notes. Unless you are autistic, and let's face it, most of you super shredder guys are autistic. 2, amazing technicians usually specialize. Joe Satriani is an amazing technician. Steve Vai is an amazing technician. Eddie Van Halen was an amazing technician. Jimi Hendrix was a very influential guitar player. Ask any of these guys to play each other's material to the same level of excellence that the original author of that composition did. It's not something they're just gonna be able to pick up and just do. Some of them may never be able to achieve it. And by the way, that's all a good thing. Each of these performers found out over a lifetime what their strengths were, and they exaggerated them, to quote Steve Vai.
I've got strengths and I've got weaknesses. I don't work on my weaknesses. I ignore them and I cultivate my strengths.
Just because you're amazing at one set of techniques does not mean that you will be amazing at all sets of techniques or just other sets of techniques. I mean, ask Yngwie Malmsteen to play a Chet Atkins piece. I mean, ask Yngwie Malmsteen to play something that's not Yngwie Malmsteen. Let's start there. Or ask Tommy Emmanuel to play a Jason Richardson piece. You're going to find a resounding no from anyone you ask about that. It's just not what they're specialized in. That's not to say that there aren't people who can master a ton of different techniques, but I've yet to find anyone who's mastered all of them, like really mastered all of them. And if they have mastered all of them, I'd say there's a high likelihood their music's probably not very good because they spend so much time focusing on playing guitar. 3, I'm willing to bet most of the guys who tag Joe Satriani in their Mean Streets playthroughs are spending way too much time chasing Eddie Van Halen. Just chasing Eddie Van Halen's sound can be admirable in and of itself. If it's something that you really want that bad, who am I to tell you that you shouldn't chase it? I mean, being able to mimic someone accurately is very difficult to do, and the person being mimicked is greatly honored by that. But if you're doing it just because this is your conception of being the ultimate guitar player, and you think that all you need to do is mimic Eddie Van Halen in order to be better than everyone else, you're in guitar for the wrong reasons, brother. Vai, Satch, and many other legends have taken the pioneered techniques of Eddie Van Halen and made it their own, 1, by taking them in different directions than Eddie did, and 2, by fusing those techniques with techniques that they picked up from other players that they love. This is a portion of finding your own voice on the instrument, but if you do this correctly, it's one of the biggest things of really making your voice. Simply showing you've spent way too much time obsessing over imitating Eddie Van Halen doesn't really demonstrate too much other than you may have some poorly placed priorities. Unless your goal is to be an Eddie Van Halen tribute, in which case, I mean, hey, God bless. Joe wasn't able to pick up the guitar and just play Mean Streets because he's been playing other things. His songs, live to real people who paid to hear him play his songs and buy his CDs. 4, Playing on a recording in a bedroom is not that impressive. Andy mostly nailed this one already, but I just wanted to add a few small points. Playing live on stage already comes with a host of pitfalls to potentially mess up your performance. Nervousness, monitoring issues, technical errors, no redos, having tightness with the band on stage. It's not the same as being by yourself in a room where no one's watching you. Yes, you are recording, so red light syndrome is a thing you're probably gonna experience, but that also comes with the implied fact that you can delete that and do it again. And you still have the same effect as if you did it the first time correctly. It's rare that any of the guitar performances you hear online, or for that matter, on recorded music, are one take. It's almost never a thing. Tommy Emmanuel is known for doing his stuff in one take, which is, you know, like big balls on that man. That's pretty much never the case anymore. Don't 1-for-1 me with your bedroom recording to someone performing live. That's just insulting to live performance. 5, and probably the most important point, it's okay to mess up. Messing up is human. It happens. Typically speaking, the more often you mess up, we assume you are not as good as the person who messes up less, but it will happen to everyone. Things just happen, and that's okay. We should give performers a little bit more grace for that. I recently did a performance with my friend Dovidas, and it was awful. I hated it, terrible, wasn't happy with it, and I hope he doesn't post it. I wasn't very prepared with the piece. I'm currently out of practice on the guitar, and I did not really like that monitoring situation on stage. I am a very spoiled boy with my in-ear monitoring system. But if he does post it, so be it. I don't have anything to prove to anyone. I perform my band's own music live, and we do a very good job. And Dovidas knows this, because he's seen us perform. I don't really care if the audience at my shitty performance thinks I'm bad, because I know the truth. And I really should be more upset that I didn't entertain them well than that my ego might be hurt because someone thinks I'm bad. And my entertaining was so-so at best, I'd say. Yeah, I really wasn't prepared, and it showed. And this is not to let myself off the hook for that. And for that matter, it's not to let anyone else off the hook for being lazy or ill-prepared. You gotta perform. That's like the thing. But if someone has a few flubs back to back, or if it seems like they're suffering a bit from stage anxiety, let's just give them a little bit of grace. Just a little bit of grace. Final thoughts. I'm a little shocked that the guitar shred community would do something like this, but after thinking about it a little bit more, it actually makes total sense. We're raising a generation of guitarists who mostly consume guitar stuff online and mostly post guitar stuff online. This is kind of becoming the standard at this point. That, combined with the fact that everyone feels like they need to be the fastest and the cleanest, because how else are you supposed to get any attention online? How are you supposed to feel like you have any worth? How else are you supposed to go viral? Lord knows social media does not like promoting things that you have to kind of sit back with, chew on for a moment, and contemplate. It mostly likes spectacle, controversy, and flash. Those three elements perfectly sum up the situation. I think that any of the guys who made those videos were capitalizing on those three things. And it's a symptom of a culture that seems to be abandoning and forgetting grace in exchange for the crab pot mentality. I'm willing to bet these guys really didn't think about it that much when they made these videos. They kind of just wanted their 5 minutes of fame. And I wouldn't be surprised if these are not the worst people in the world. But doing that certainly seems to highlight a hubris flaw in their character. It's totally fine if you want to try and ride a viral wave. It's totally fine if you want to show people how to perform something correctly. How you choose to present that is equally as important. I hope we all can learn something from this, and I hope we can do better next time. Let's have a little more grace. As someone who has had a substantial lack of grace in the past, I would consider myself an expert on this one. Thank you all for watching. Would love to know your thoughts. Love you guys. Stay safe, stay amazing.